are.
We are. Hey, we're going to do things just a little bit different again today because I see Steve is in the house already. We're going to bring him on in just a second, and we'll just do the interview right off the bat. Chris, how does that sound? Does it sound good to
Works for
you?
me. Works for me.
Awesome. So here's how this is going to work, guys. We want you to go ahead and we want you to post your questions in the comments for Steve Rehring. He was a former Buckeye offensive lineman in the 2000s, and I'm excited because this is all about offensive linemen today, and
Yep.
I think we brought a pretty good one onto the show. So give me 1 second, and let's see if we can't bring him in. Steve, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Steve, welcome to the OHIO podcast, my friend.
Glad to be here.
All right, man. Hey, this is awesome because it's been a while since. Well, I think the last offensive lineman we had might have been our first guest, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I
But
think Mike was the last one we
I
had.
think Mike Wargo was our last was the last offensive lineman we talked to. So, man, I'm telling you, I'm a little worried this season, Steve, about this offensive line. I've been telling everybody, especially when you compare with what they've got in that state up north with all the experience. But maybe you can kind of put my mind at ease here because you went through this before the summer workouts, the two-a-days back then. What is this offensive line getting ready for? What are they doing right now that spring's over and summer's here?
Well, summer sucks, so you guys see the realization of it. To be honest with you, strength pulling's over, and it's the big guy's worst nightmare. It's straight conditioning right now, so it's weightlifting is hard, and after weightlifting is not what a 300-pound bus guy likes to do. Uh, so we do a lot of that in the summer. Get after it and you get conditioned. I know when I was there, Coach Trustle's conditioning test was legit. Uh, Most guys would have heart attacks trying to run that thing,
Oh
and
my.
I think some of us close when we did it. So summer is just about like more getting in with the team, building with your relationships with your guys. You're basically only ones on campus right now, so all you got to do is hang out with your friends. So pretty
Yeah.
much, and then
Yeah.
offense line wise, it's hanging out with those five guys you're gonna be playing with, building trust, because I think that's the biggest thing with offensive line. One
Yeah.
great guy, and it's a old adage, and weakest link in the chain. So if you have one guy that's weak, he's gonna pull the rest of you guys down. You guys got to work together and build that cohesion between five guys. I think the key is finding the five guys early in camp, and then building it from there. Then
Yeah.
obviously the guy you play next to, that's a tight end and a set guard or tackle and a center, really building that trust with those guys.
Yeah, we're going to talk. I want to get dive into that because I've spoke to a lot of offensive linemen and they talk about how important chemistry is, on that line, and I want to dive into that. But before that, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you ended up being a Buckeye?
Shoot, it's so I'm originally from Chicago. Parents got transferred to Cincinnati and Lakota West, Westchester, and crazy story. My basically neighbor, we shared a driveway with each other, was Ryan Hamby. So he
Oh,
was a couple years before me, a good friend of mine, and we basically lived together, same neighborhood, hung out together for 8 9 years, and he came up, and I just followed his footpath. Wasn't a college football fan really growing up in the big city, Chicago. So Ryan told me how great Ohio State was, and a couple minutes with Coach Trust and my mom, it's pretty much done. So I don't know. That man has some special recruiting ability, and it ain't toward the players either. It was straight toward the parents, and my parents felt most comfortable there. Then, your parents feel comfortable, you feel comfortable. So
yeah.
I ended up at Ohio State and fell in love with it. The first game I went to was my junior year of high school. I guess Washington State. It's Philip Rivers, and that was a really good game, and fell in love with Ohio State right after that.
That's awesome, man.
So now
So
I'm doing really cool shit though. I gotta give my plug out there with what I'm
do
doing
it, man.
now.
Let's hear it.
So I work for Abbott Labs, not the one. It's the same Abbott Labs that's here in Columbus. I live in Columbus, but I work out of a branch out of Austin, Texas, and I do a thing called deep brain stimulation. So it's a medical device for Parkinson's and essential tremors patients. It's electric brain surgery that really can help patients change their quality of life. And so if you know anybody or do have Parkinson's or central tremor and want to reach out, feel free. Talk them through the process and see if they're be a good candidate. We'll get them to the right doc that can help them out. And basically, I'll be with you. You're stuck with me then. So I'm with you during surgery, then post surgery, for as long as you have the device. So it's really cool stuff. Super busy, but this is cool. I got to do this kind of thing.
That is cool, dude. I didn't even know
Yeah,
something like that existed, man. That's incredibly, gosh, that's inspiring, man. That's really cool. So,
get
no, I'm
patients that
glad you shared that.
get patients with essential tremor that can't even put a pen to paper or can't sign their name, and now they can sign their name freely. Right, do the things they like to do, simple things like drinking a cup of coffee. They had to drink out of a straw, and now they can drink it out of a normal cup. So it's really cool stuff.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Hey, so Jim Tressel comes and recruits your mom, for lack of a better term.
Pretty much.
Tell me about your relationship with Coach Tress. Anybody who watches this show knows that I have a deep appreciation of that man, and I've read his the winner's manual multiple times. My dream is one day interview the guy. That's like my ultimate dream. But give me a Coach Tress story, and do you still stay in contact with the man?
Not as much as you would think, but I probably talk to him maybe once a year. I ran into a couple of different charity events and that stuff. And the craziest thing about that man, he meets you once, he met you for life. Like he knows my mom and dad's names still. You know what I mean? My mom saw him in Ada, Ohio, a couple years after I'd done playing, doing a charity walk with my brother where he went to school at Ohio Northern. Coach Tress was there and came up and said, "Hey, Eileen, how are you?" Like not in the same environment that you would think he'd know your name. And as little as time you spent with him, you felt like you spent a ton of time with him. Being your head coach, you spend most of your time with your assistant coaches. But he fully ingrained into your life. He knew things that were going on, and he's a great human being. I mean, I was in the hospital in my second year in college, had a medical red shirt, and I think he showed up every night to be with my mom while I was in the hospital doing some crazy stuff. And it's game week, so he didn't have to be there, but he made a point to show up and be present. So that was always huge in my life with him.
That's
He genuinely cared about his people. So
that's
it was wins
awesome,
and
man.
losses, but he definitely cared about you and wanted you to graduate, wanted you to be successful. So it's unfortunate the way he had to go out, but I think he's in a better place now mentally and happy and living retirement life. So he's doing good.
That you're the second Buckeye in a row who we've interviewed that has said that exact thing. That once he meets you one time, he knows you for life, and he'll remember things and people and families and your family members' names and things. That's pretty awesome. So you get to Ohio State, man. You get developed, and let's talk about that, because I think out of any position except for maybe tight end, which is obviously very closely related to the offensive line just by proximity, there's not another position in football, I believe, that takes the amount of development at the college level as the offensive line. Speak to that a little bit and what it was like for you when you came in as a freshman to how you got become an upperclassman and then got on the field.
So I was one of those early guys before it was very popular coming in after my in January of my senior year. So not many guys did that back then. I think just a few guys here and there were doing it. I think I was one of three guys in our class that did it that year. I just remember the first day in pads. It's like you're in high school, you be lazy on certain things and go about your thing and still dominate the game. And all of a sudden you go against a guy, like a Simon Frazier or Mike Kula, those kind of guys that are bench pressing insane. Simon was a senior, and it's like, holy crap, this guy's this big and this fast. I never seen some of his hands get on me that quick and be that powerful. You know what I mean? Somebody like that in high school was a little tiny guy. You're like, okay, he hit me. Watch this. And these guys are like, oh my. So I had a unique experience that first 15 days of practice in spring ball. We're like, holy crap, I don't know if I could play at this level. And then your body develops, you get used to the speed, and you're like, okay, I can got this. And it takes time. It's a lot of discouragement as a young offensive lineman, to be honest with you, because you're so used to dominating at the high school level. When you get there, you're just trying to survive some days, especially early, because you get put up against these guys. They're no longer kids; they're men, 22-year-old, bench pressing the houses, and been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and you're like, holy crap. But then you get used to it. You use different techniques, way different techniques than you used in high school. Because if you use those techniques now in college, there's no chance. So you learn things. I had a guy, Rob Sims, long NFL career, kind of show me some unique things to do, techniques after practice, those kind of things. Really helped me out. And I was blessed to play with like a guy like Nick Mangold, who was the most insane knee bender you ever seen in your life. I mean, the guy could play 3-4 inches off the ground and still have power, which was incredible. So watching those guys play, those older guys play, really taught me how to play the game and taught me how to do it at a higher level. So hopefully you got some good older guys that can develop you and take you under the wing and really cherish those moments and learn from them. Because I think the guys that are a little stubborn or want to do it their way, they really get set back in their development. So it's just basically like break it all down and relearn the position to a certain point. So it's a lot different blocking a 330-pound defense tackle than a 220-pound defense tackle in high school. You know what I mean? So
right,
it's different ball game, and the speed is the biggest difference. The speed of the game and how fast things happen, and how many different things can happen inside one play. I don't think the general fan realizes. Yeah, the play's called, but there could be 5 to 6 different ways to block that based on the defensive front you're getting, or if you're getting a blitz, or what coverage you're in. And people don't realize offensive linemen are actually looking at coverages. So trying to guess what's going to happen on that play, and then we all try to work in that same way. So there's a physical aspect, then there's a mental aspect. Okay, right before the snap of the whistle, the center can change the call, and you have to be able to go on it like that. I think that's the biggest difference between like that early development as you get older. You already know what's going to happen, so you're already ready for it. When you're young, it's like, oh shit, he changed it. What I got to do now? Okay, you got to think really fast, and so it can get you caught up a little bit. So that's where like the cohesion between the 5 that you play with is huge, and nonverbal cues, because you're in like a Penn State environment or something like that, you can't hear shit.
yeah,
You're literally using sign language at the line of scrimmage. So
hand
development
signals,
though
right?
is huge. These kids are crazy though. It's coming in now. They look different than when we were there. Bodies are developed differently. Biggest thing's nutrition. We were lucky to get a bagel when I was playing. I think these guys are getting steaks and lobsters. I was up there at spring ball. I was like, this cafeteria is insane. So we were just basically bringing Chipotle in from because that's all we could afford back then. Right before practice, and these guys are getting full-blown meals with chefs now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a totally different world. Larry Daniels says, welcome to the show, Steve. Do you have a favorite game memory you could share?
Yeah, so I think, it's pretty simple in my career. Any Michigan game was huge. We were that class that started the trend, the Tressel trend with not losing. So 04 was cool. It was my first Michigan game. Special cherished moment, that one in my heart. 06, obviously, 1 versus 2, which if you take away some turnovers, we beat them by like 21 or 28 easily, because I thought we dominated the run game the whole game. And let's see, I think there's a Penn State game we played on Halloween in maybe 07 that we blew them out pretty good. That was a pretty cool game because that crowd was crazy in the first quarter, and it was pretty silent by the end of it. So it's pretty cool to see that. But it's been 15, almost 20 years now since I started. So it's crazy. It's been that long.
20 years, but you still got a good series in you, don't you?
I got about 2 plays.
2 plays, huh?
2 plays. You better have some water.
Chris, I got
my energy chasing a 3 and 5 year around, but I don't got that energy to push big guys around no more.
We saw Archie get out there. Maybe we can get him in for one more next spring game,
I'm about the same speed.
Chris, you got a question, buddy?
Yeah, Steve, I was just wondering, what do you think of what you've seen so far this year out of the current offensive line?
I think it's a group that's very talented across the board as 5 individuals. I've been a couple practices, that normal fans can't get into. They're individually good players, pretty much across the board. It's maybe a couple of the guys are a little younger than you probably want them to start playing, but I think the talent's there. The three interior guys were impressive. Uh, I I watched left tackle a little bit. He looked decent. The right tackle was flipping between a kid from my high school. I'm terrible with names, by the way. I'm in the hospital all day, every day, so I don't get much of the names. But I think it's Tegra or something like that.
Tigris
Tigger
Shabola.
Shabola.
Yeah, he's from my high school. Well, he looked pretty good the day he was in there. Obviously, you're going against a guy like JT and those guys, so they're going to embarrass you in practice. Let's not get it wrong. They know the snap counts and they know the plays. But he held his own. Uh, they all look good as individuals. Now it's, hey, how fast can you play? You know what I mean?
Right.
Individual drills, you look good. You know, the little scrimmages, you look good, but how fast can you play? And how fast can you process what's going on? Talent's there, in my opinion. And I think the tight end's pretty good too. As a, traditional tight end, he can help out with that group too. Get him the extra six guy in there because they play a little different football than we played. They don't have things called fullbacks anymore.
Yeah, right.
Well, well, and as you touched on the fullback, that was kind of a different era of football, I guess, a little bit. But speaking to that, when you played, I think there was much more of, I don't, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think there was more of a physicality to it, to where now there might be a little more finesse to it. And do
Yeah,
you think that has really? I mean, obviously we've seen that when we played that team up north the last couple of years. Have definitely, I think, been a more physical group. Do you think that we have the players in place who can take that step and become, still keep the finesse, but become that more physical, aggressive line?
I think it's also the style of run game they're
Mhm.
running. I personally would like to see some gap scheme, just because that's what
Mhm.
the bread and butter when we played, and gap defeats all different
Yeah,
defenses you can run at them. Um, Now, is the gap scheme going to get you the big plays as often as the stretch zone or inside zone? Probably not. But when it comes to 4th and 1, it's going to get you it. And then you have to have somebody reliable at fullback if you're going to run
right.
gap, or a big ass tight end that's willing to stick his head in there and get concussed. That's,
Well, I think
I
we've
mean,
got that.
Yeah.
yeah, it's willing to. We had like Tyler Whaley, who was a walk-on
Yes.
center who ended up on scholarship. The kid just wanted to run through a wall from down in Southern Ohio. We need some of those guys. Those Ironton boys, they're crazy. I mean, hit a brick wall with your head. Okay, cool. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Or I think it was Deontay Johnson, Pepper Johnson's son. He was there.
Yeah.
That dude also, big ass head, would put it right in your chest, and if he got concussed, he got concussed. Not that I'm saying people got concussed, but when it gets nitty gritty in 4th and 1 and 3rd and 2, I hate when they line up in 4 wide and it's 3rd and 2. It's like, can we just run the damn ball?
Well, and I think that running the ball right now would probably take a little bit of pressure off that first time starter we're going to have in there as well. So,
Yeah, and the offensive line, personally, I mean, let's be honest, we want to go forward as an offensive
right.
lineman. Yeah, going backwards and letting a guy come at you all game is taking a physical toll on you. Compared to if you go forward, it's taking a physical toll on them. So the little things, I think, you know, I think some of the things that's getting changed over there, new offensive line coach, and I think Hartline's roots. Hopefully, he calls stress and learns the Dave play.
I'm liking what I'm hearing, Chris. I
Yeah.
knew having an offensive lineman back on this show would ground us again. Here's a couple questions from some of our listeners, Steve. I want to make sure we get these in here in this interview. Paul Buckeye says, "What is your favorite win in your career?"
Oh, Six Mission game for sure.
Yeah,
I just wish we would cap that off with another win. It's a couple
right.
weeks later, but those
Yeah,
Six Michigan game. I mean, it's cool now. I got a 5-year-old. We're on Big Ten Network still, so that's really cool. The instant classic, or now it's a classic, not instant classic anymore.
right.
It's a classic. My kid goes, "Why is the definition so bad of the TV?" I was like, "That was high enough back in the day, buddy." But no, that game was pretty awesome. Let's see. There was a Wisconsin game, maybe '07, that we were down like 21 and came back and won it. And Beanie had like 220 in rushing. We literally came back by running the ball. And I think Beanie ended up with 4 touchdowns and just right down their throat, and they didn't know what hit them. we came back. I think won it by 14. We're down 21 sometime in that game. So that was a cool game. And Wisconsin was always a unique rivalry when I played.
Yeah, that was big
They
time
don't,
for Tressel. Yeah.
yeah, and they like to run their mouths a lot too over there. So when we were there, so it was always fun to beat them.
It's all that cheese and beer, I think, for
Big
Wisconsin.
boys up there too.
They got some big boys. That's right. That's right. So
I
so
think every
this is
offensive lineman was there was my height, my size. Even their center was like 6'8" up there in
Jeez,
Wisconsin.
Christmas. So the follow-up question to that, since you brought up the '06, what's your feelings on Urban Meyer?
Hell of a football coach.
That's it.
I don't know him. I don't know. I personally know. I don't know him personally. And honestly, when he was at Ohio State, uh, we weren't around the program very much as former players, to be honest.
Right, right.
Um,
Well,
Coach Day has opened up that program, and he's very similar with Tress. As long as you give him notice, you have an open invitation to be there. Just no cell phones. So,
interesting.
and he multiple days, in the fall and the spring that they invite us. They do some barbecues and that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, it feels a lot more like I thought it was going to feel when I played for Tress. It was like open, come back. I brought my 5-year-old back this year. Yeah, it was interesting bringing a 5-year-old to practice because he made it through individual drills. As soon as they started scrimmaging, he started yelling at me to leave. I'm like, come on, buddy. It's scrimmage time. Can we stay for 5 minutes at least? But no, it feels a lot more open to the former players now. I think, with Hartline there, James there now, I think they're bringing a lot of the older guys back. Where that Tressier guys, once Urban came in, you didn't feel, not that you weren't welcomed, you just weren't openly welcomed. They weren't sending invitations out and that kind of thing. And a lot of guys get pretty busy. If there's not an open invitation, it's kind of hard to set up your schedule to drop in.
Right, right.
So,
Here's a question from Donald Hoffer II. What is the hardest learning curve going from high school to college from a player perspective?
oof, that could be a lot of things. To be honest, as a player on the field, definitely is learning the speed of the game. Like I said earlier, off the field is okay. You're here. You got a little structure, but are you going to get your ass to class? Or are you going to get to the weight room? Are you going to do the things you need to do? There's no. It's way less structure than when you were in high school. You went to class all day. Right after class, you had weights, or right after class, you had football. So just preparing your body. That's the other thing is being with guys that know how to take care of their body. I think is another huge thing. I was privileged to live with like Bobby Carpenter and Doug Dadish, guys that really took care of their body well and try to take some of their things they were doing because that's stuff we didn't do in high school, And, an ice bath can go a long ways for the next day practice. And these young guys don't realize that, even though it sucks, get in it kind of
Mhm.
thing and make sure you rehab and do those kind of things.
Your best Schlegel story.
I got a couple. It's a couple I'm not going to share without his permission. I mean, I met the guy on a recruiting visit.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that
Yeah.
And then he would show up at he was married in college too. So
Was he
never saw
really?
crazy.
I did not know that.
When I was there, he was married to her, I believe. So we never got Crazy Slegs a lot. But when Crazy Slegs came out, it was interesting. It was he don't care. He would show up in the middle of winter at a bar with a cut off flannel and gym shorts and
All
work
gas, no
boots.
brakes, right?
He don't care. He's like, this one I'm wearing. I'm not changing. I'm not showering. I'm going to the bar.
Oh my
So
goodness.
he's
Okay.
crazy
Here,
man. But yeah, a lot of the things around Schlegs, we'll keep that between us. But he's great. He's a great dude.
this is
And I think any of his guys that he played with, he would run through a brick wall for.
there you go. Yeah, he's awesome, man. I love Schlegs. I love when he gets on the radio with Bobby Carpenter. This question's from
If
my
you
dear.
understand half the stuff he says,
I'm sorry. What's that,
he goes,
Steve?
if he drinks coffee, you're like, what the hell did he just say? I don't know where he was even going with that. Are you guys even on the same topic? Because I listen to that in the morning driving in sometimes when he's at 6 a.m.
Yeah,
I'm like, they're on two different topics right now. I don't know what they're talking about.
it's great. This question's from my dear wife, Sarah Boggs. She says, how long before you get that sweet 5-year-old of yours and helmet and pads?
So with my job, I get the privilege of working with incredible neurosurgeons every day. So talking to them, you probably don't, they have their opinions. I have one guy who's incredible at Ohio State. He was a college rugby player, and he told me 13.
13.
13 is a good age. Junior high, that's when I started. Anthony Munoz was a friend of my brother. Mike Munoz was a friend of my brother, and Anthony Munoz was friends with my dad. And he said the same thing, 7th grade, early as you need to start playing them. 13 with the neurosurgeons because the skull finally develops at 13. It's fully developed at 13. So if he
Very
wants to play,
insightful
that's
answer.
when it'll be.
There you go. There
I
you
don't know
go,
how.
Sarah.
Don't take that as clinical evidence. That's just one man's opinion, but his opinion is a neurosurgeon, so I'll take it.
There you go. This is coming from a guy who says we need more Ironton guys on the team. So, hey, I got to.
Those down south Ohio boys, they're built different now.
They are. They are. I agree with that. I got 2 more questions for you, man. Before we let you get out of here, we really appreciate you joining the show tonight, Steve. How is this offensive line? I guess you can relate it to your time. How does an offensive line develop chemistry? I know it takes time, but is there any insights you can offer for us on that?
I think the biggest thing is hang out with each other, be around each other all the time. Nonverbal cues are huge, especially in those tough environments. Uh, and just stacking good practices on top of that. I think, your biggest critic is your other offensive linemen, and we're ruthless individuals when it comes to like off the field to each other. But you have the trust that, you're just joking around. Some things that get said, you're like, holy crap, you just said it to me. Another guy would probably get punched in the face. But I think just building that trust, and the one thing I haven't seen in a while is good fighting practice. I don't know if they do that anymore. I mean, we would just start fights, just amp the amplitude in practice a little bit, and you fight with one offensive lineman, you're fighting with all 15 of people on scholarship, or all 18 of the guys, or 20 of the guys that are in the offensive line room. You fight with one of us, you fight with any of us. A good fight every once in a while in practice builds a little cohesion too.
There
To
you
see who
go.
has your back. Rip a guy's face mask off. You don't have to punch him in the face or anything. Just rip his face mask off. At least you pisses them off enough.
So
So
you
that, hang out with each other. I mean, we play golf with each other in the summer. Some of us, we would, and that, let me tell you, that was an ugly golf round. You have 4 300-pounders and 2 golf carts. Let's bless those golf carts' hearts. And a couple times we told the clubhouse about hole 13 because our cart was dead. And we ain't walking. So doing those things and just really hang out with each other. I think the best groups of offense lines I was on, you would see all of us out together, or the majority of us out together, pretty much all year round. Just enjoying each other's company and finding, not everyone can lift together, but make sure you're lifting with your group of guys, whoever that group of guys are, and make sure it's inside your unit. And those kind of things, those little things you can do. But like I said, drink some beers together, I guess.
Robert Allen says the O line is the most important position. Yes or no? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think everyone on the team will probably say that. You know,
Yeah.
uh, Smartest guys on the team too.
There
Best
that
looking too.
that's
Uh,
actually true, actually. I don't know about good looking, but definitely the smartest ones.
yeah, it's if we don't do our job, running backs can't run through holes. Quarterbacks can't throw passes. Wide receivers still think they can get open in a split a second, but they know. And think that's one thing. Even Hartline back in the day, he was one of the guys with Anthony and Ted. If he scored a touchdown, that guy went straight to the offensive line bench and came over and said, "Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys." Um, they know. They won't admit it. They know though. And then defense line, I think, on the other side of the ball is most important. So
Famous last question for you, Steve. This is what I try to ask every Buckeye that I interview. What does it mean to Steve Rehring to be a Buckeye?
I mean, it means the world to me. It's opened many doors that, I may or might not have got through. It's put a, nice job for my family, doing those kind of things. Buckeye fans are crazy. I mean, I run into people that I'm like, who are you? I'm like, I think I'm up in Cleveland for work, and I run into people like, you Steve? I'm like, yes. So Buckeye fans are crazy. If these kids realize it now, they can network for the rest of their life. We didn't have NIL. We had just the degree and that I played football at Ohio State, and we looked at it as differently as the kids now. It was a long-term NIL kind of thing for us. It was, I'm not paying college debt. I got a great job. I got a couple of good jobs out of college. Probably got younger than most would have got, and now set up for success down the road. So it's one of those things. If guys take it right, even nowadays, network is what I tell the young kids, because eventually, not for long, ends. That's my goal for NFL. Not for long. So it's one of those things. You never know where your career is going to end, or if it's ever going to get to there. So make sure while you're there, network and get your degree and actually show up to class, because that's Ohio State means the world to me. My wife knows. Don't watch games with me. I'm still screaming at the screen. I don't go to many because my kids are so young, but I do get my 4 hours alone because she can't stand watching games with me because I'm usually the one screaming at the screen, and she doesn't understand why I'm screaming at the screen because I don't even watch the quarterback and wide receivers. I'm literally watching the offensive lineman the whole game.
I was going to ask that question, so I'm glad you gave us that insight, because usually
I can't stand watching games with average fans, because they'll be blocking with 5 or empty backfield with 5. They'll rush 6 and they're like, the offensive line sucks. I'm like, yeah, that was on us. There's 6 guys rushing with 5 of us. Yeah, that's on us. So I can't stand watching games if people don't know football. So I usually end up watching most games from like guys I played with or guys I know that know football real well, because my wife will make those comments. I'm like, no, that's not on us. That's on the quarterback. So, but yeah, back to that original question. Buckeye Nation's incredible. Ohio State's incredible. It's gave me, incredible things in my life. So I appreciate everything. And it's awesome to be on these podcasts and doing these kind of things, because, I mean, fans are crazy.
We're nuts.
It's 90 days out and we're talking football. You know what I mean?
Right.
What other team in the country is doing this right now? Not very many.
Not very many. As Chris's daughter likes to say, we're a cult. I think she might be onto something there. She might be onto something there. So,
I
Steve,
just wish I had an NIL deal with like some of these guys do now. I'm like,
I know, it's crazy.
You drive by the wood and you're like, look at the parking lot, like, that's insane. What you're seeing in that parking lot, and you're like, that would have been nice.
Yeah, no kid. You would have been
cars that needed jumped every day at the parking lot because we couldn't afford batteries.
You would have been driving a big 350, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably back then I would have been.
I figured so.
Especially if they're paying for the gas.
Right? There you go. Steve Rehring, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve. We really appreciate this, man. You are a joy. We'd love to have you come back on sometime. Sound good?
Yeah, anytime. You have my contact anytime. And thanks to your wife. She did an incredible job with my son this year at in Old Tangent School, so I appreciate it.
I'm sure she's down there giving a big smile. Thank you so much, Steve. You have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate that.
Yeah.